Yeah.
Welcome to another podcast at Peaky Ads YouTube channel, and today we're going to talk about SEO optimization and doing it in the same way as you optimize business. It's not a big secret that it's hard to scale your business. It's hard to scale your SEO teams. So we have Sean Bianco on air, and he will tell us how to scale those businesses, those processes. He kind of a guru, I would say, in this question already running a successful company about it. So, Sean, could you introduce yourself a little to our audience?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean Bianco. I'm, let's say, one of the founders at GainChanger. We're an SEO agency. So we were founded in 2020. My background is in SEO and marketing in general with SaaS companies and iGaming companies. And yeah, as Vasily rightly said, I hyper focus on process, scalability of teams, scalability of results, identifying patterns, and figuring out how to either convert them into automation or to convert them into processes which can be scaled with manpower. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride the past couple of years. So much has been changing. And I mean, there's never been a better time to be alive, I think, than right now. You know, the electricity is in the air, things are changing every so often, and opportunities are arising every single new day which comes into existence. So, you know, new models are coming out, new services are coming out, new requirements are coming out, user interests and expectations and attention is changing over time. So it's been an interesting time, but the best times are yet to come, of that I'm sure.
Exactly, chaotic era, but it's time to grow fast and profitable. So let's go dive deep into the first question. So, Sean, how can business ensure their SEO strategies are directly aligned with their overarching business objectives?
Okay, so we're talking specifically about the iGaming vertical here, Vasily, or are we talking just in general?
We can talk about iGaming as the main our audience is about iGaming, but let's talk in general also because there are guys from other industries on this channel.
Certainly. So the way that I look at it is that if you're going to start an SEO strategy, you first need to understand what your goals are, right? And in some cases, depending on the state of the company and its current life cycle, it might have different goals. But let's break it down into three major goals, right? And those three major goals might be generating ROI, meaning that if you put in 10 euros into SEO, you expect 20 euros out of it within a period of time. You're looking at someone who's looking to acquire market share. So what does acquiring market share means? It means that every single keyword which might appear for any topic related to your business and brand and competition, you would want to appear for also. And then there is, you know, simply protecting your brand. So making sure that you're ranking for all of the relevant key phrases, but you're also protecting the reputation of your brand in the search results, right? So if there are forums and different kinds of trust pilots, industry resources, Quora, Reddit, and so forth, that you're protecting yourself and the reputation of your brand within the SERPs. So once you understand what the true goal of your business is, then you can start building out models around that. So I don't know, if we're to say, I'm looking to generate ROI, how would you even start to get business people on board in your operation or with your clientele if you can't translate the work that you do into money? Yeah. So if you don't have a good, let's say, feel on how the work that you're going to be contributing is going to convert into money, how can you tell people that you're going to rely on SEO as a channel to generate income? It just doesn't work that way. We're beyond the days where you start up a site, you leave it ranking, good content, good site management for a period of time, and within a couple of years, you know, you have an asset which is generating a significant amount of revenue for you. Things are just changing way too often and way too fast. So what you'd first need to look at when evaluating ROI is, number one, what vertical are you targeting? So in the case of, let's say, casino, you're going to be looking at, or iGaming, you're looking at the casino vertical, lotto vertical, you're looking into sports betting and several other verticals within the iGaming space. Each of those verticals have different, let's say, interest per market in terms of how many people are searching for those types of products per month, what the intent of those keywords are. And then you have to look at what the value of the players in those markets or the business in those markets are, right?
Let's be honest, we all love making money easily, right? Welcome to the Triaff Stars Partners Affiliate Program, where high conversions, crazy retention rates, and worthy payouts aren't just buzzwords, they're the real deal. Triaff Stars is a direct gaming advertiser and offers 35% direct-to-debit conversion, average retention rate of 50%. Setting up postbacks, fast withdrawals, experienced managers, they take care of everything, so affiliates can focus on what matters, scaling profits. Find a special promo code for subscribers of Peaky Ads YouTube channel in the description of this video and get a 10% bonus for the standard revenue share rate. The only question is, why aren't you in yet? Follow the link in the description and become a partner right now.
So one easy way to evaluate value is what you would pay an affiliate for a player if you were to purchase it through them rather than building up your own traffic and acquiring that player yourself, or understanding the customer lifetime value once someone interacts with your product in a country and region, and how that pans out in terms of revenues in the long term and costs also. So once you start collecting this data on, okay, which country am I in, what language they speak, how many people are searching for my product in that region, how much clicks can I expect on my website when I'm doing well, how do those clicks convert into mojitos in my bank account at the end of the month, right? By either comparing it to CPA you would pay affiliates or cumulative fixed fees, CPA, and so forth, or how much would I make on a CLTV basis if I'm already operating in that market and have SEO customers? What are the conversion rates like from traffic to registration, registration to depositor, depositor to deposit value to CLTV? So these are all of the questions you can ask yourself in the iGaming space, and it doesn't really differ very much when it comes to the, let's say, SaaS space, because what are you looking for? You're looking to acquire a customer. When you do acquire a customer, there's a CLTV. You have your customer acquisition cost, so they don't look at it in software as a CPA, more on the customer acquisition cost point of view. And then you have the amount of money which you're going to be earning over a period of time. As long as your customer acquisition cost is less than your customer lifetime value by a significant margin, you know that you're in the green. So when you're evaluating ROI, you need to evaluate, when you do achieve traffic, how much value does that have to my business? How much money can I generate? And once I generate, and how long is it going to take me to generate that value? So, I mean, right now, Vasilii, as you know, as you mentioned, rightfully so, and I think we spoke about this at Prague last year also, right? Where you mentioned something about the chaotic era, which I agree with. It's a very chaotic era right now. So there are tactics that can bring you players or can bring you traffic and can bring you customers for your SaaS software within weeks, not months, right? So there's stuff such as Parasite SEO or site reputation abuse, and so many other methods which are out there, which we can talk about later on. So when you're evaluating a market and you were to see that, okay, traditionally, if I operate this way and I don't bring anything unique to the table besides setting up a domain and launching content on it and issuing some backlinks, then I can expect to rank and in this amount of time versus my competition and generate this many clicks. And those clicks will translate into, as an example, on a typical affiliate site, site impressions to click outs, then click out to FTD, let's say roughly 6%, depending on the market. And you can evaluate what kind of revenue you can generate and when you can generate it by when you're expecting to hit. Now, if you see in your model that you're going to be operating at a loss for more than 6 to 8 months in this current economy and in this current SERP scenario, I mean, it's a model which doesn't make sense to me anymore. So you need to think about how I can generate money faster. What are you bringing to the table to compete against these monsters who might have a site with 10 years of authority or might be competing with methods and methodologies which you don't know about? So I am writing an ebook about this. It will be coming out next week, which does go into a lot of detail about all of the tactics you can utilize to speed up your rankings. But for me, if an SEO comes to me nowadays and says, hey, I'm just going to start a website to compete in a very highly regulated or very highly competitive market with very old competition that's doing an extremely good job. I mean, if you're not coming with some kind of expired domain or some kind of potential to 301 redirect other domains to this domain, or utilize traffic manipulation or one of these other methods, and be willing to potentially have a short-term plan or a long-term plan based on something of substance, then for me, it just doesn't make sense anymore. It's things change too often, and you need to be willing to change things also. So that's on the ROI side. Then you have the brand, and this is very important when you're trying to align your business goals, because you might look at this calculation and say, okay, oh Lord, there's no money to be made over here because I don't have I'm not showing up here with an expired domain or with some domain with age and backlinks or some kind of unique value. And if I enter this race now, I'm going to have to spend X amount of money over so much time, and I'm not even guaranteed to rank realistically. But I know I will because I do really good work, right? So that doesn't really speak to business people anymore. So let's just say you go through that process and you don't actually manage to determine that you can generate ROI. What's the next step? Okay, if you can't generate ROI fast, what's the situation looking like with our brand? So when it comes to our brand-related search queries, are we ranking at position 1 for all of our brand-related search queries? And if you're a software company, I'm not just talking about, hey, software SaaS name number 1. I'm talking about SaaS name number 1 with problems. So how to fix this, how to fix that, how to enable this, how to set up that. When it comes to iGaming operators, so brand name plus deposits, brand name plus withdrawal, brand name plus bonus code, these kinds of keywords. You're buying those players or those customers back from the people in the best case scenario that are ranking for the keywords that your brand operates under. In the worst case scenario, those keywords get pushed elsewhere, right? So it's not a good look for anyone. So if you're not going to generate ROI fast, at least you can reduce your customer acquisition cost by protecting your brand. Now, if ROI isn't important for you and just securing your brand isn't going to get you up in the morning, then you might want to consider a longer term strategy where you're looking to acquire market share. And if you're looking to acquire market share, realistically, you have to evaluate the competitors, the amount that they're spending, how they got there, how long they've been there for, and what it's going to take for you to completely destroy the market and rank above them. And in many cases, it's not going to be a profitable effort in the short term acquiring market share. It's going to be a big brand, big balls, big budgets kind of approach where it takes a very long period of time. You manage to acquire that market share and you manage to hold it. And I think this is where most people kind of where they veer off in the wrong direction when it comes to starting SEO campaigns, because they just, say, hey, we're going to hire an SEO or an SEO agency as an example, and let's just get started. We just want SEO as a channel. But no, what are your business goals? If you don't know what they are and you don't define them, you're just going to have unrealistic expectations, and you're going to end up in a scenario where no one is happy, right? And
Exactly.
There's those odd scenarios where things work out anyway, which do happen quite often also.
Exactly. Sean, thank you for such massive intro and answer for just one simple question. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights. First of all, congratulations on your upcoming book. We will share a link to this book in the description below so you can read it. Will be a price for this book, or it's for free? Do you know?
I'm giving it away for free, and I'm giving you all of the best tactics in iGaming that you can utilize to actually win for free. So yeah, maybe after this, just take a look at during this, just take a look down below and get access to your free copy. It will definitely be worth your time.
Exactly. Don't miss best practices from Sean down below in the description. And coming back to what we just been discussing, or what you've been just talking about, a pretty base setup for running a successful business. So here I have one question, and probably our audience is also interested in it. Which tools, which AI maybe do you use in your jobs like to analyze keywords, to build SEO strategy, to build team processes, to work with texts, and so on, like your ultimate list of tools and purposes of it. Yeah.
So I'm going to give you the answer that you're probably not expecting, which is my ultimate tool right now is Notion. And in terms of AI and what's currently on the market, we use all of the major ones, of course, like Perplexity, ChatGPT. Now we're looking into Grok and everything else which is coming out. So it's not so much about the AI anymore, because there's also a lot of different progressions and forks in what's happening with AI, right? So I can tell you AI agents, BS, doesn't make sense. So if you're going to be working with AI agents or trying that stuff out, it's basically a prompt pattern. So there's no unique value over there. I do have an interest in an AI company right now, which will be integrating, let's say, a little bit more deeply into our operation as time goes by. I can't release much information about that right now, but I'm definitely guarantee you that in the future, a lot of people will be utilizing this in the SEO agency space. One thing that I can tell you for sure is that it's not so much about the AI, it's about the processes. So regardless of whether you're using Pippo, Pluto, whatever it might be, right? And I'm just giving you because you never know what the next AI model is going to be called. It's also become a lot easier, by the way, to deliver your own LLMs nowadays. So it doesn't cost 10 million anymore. It might cost a couple of hundreds of thousands. So things are changing quite significantly. What I would tell you is that more than, let's say, integrating with different AI models and integrating into different, let's say, tools, I would say focus on what you're offering. Focus on the procedures and processes to implement what you're offering, and identify all of the tools which are relevant for your offering and data points. So it's not so much about the tool, but it's about the data points. Now, every single data point can be generated from multiple tools, right? So as an example, you can have information on backlinks from Majestic, you can have it from SEMrush, you can have it from Ahrefs, and a range of other tools, right? Same with rank tracking and all of those different areas. Are you going to build these things yourself? No, you're not. Are you going to potentially utilize the cheapest source of data to integrate into your models? 100%. It's become kind of like a race now to the top of how much money you can charge for an SEO tool. And everyone's seeing that the prices are just increasing significantly year on year. So I think in terms of, let's say, user base, these tools have kind of hit their peak to an extent. And now the way that you generate more money is by generating more customers, reducing churn, and increasing costs, right? So I think right now a lot of people and companies, unfortunately, are leaning on the increasing costs. The costs also have to increase because of the amount of AI content which has been, populated on the internet and has increased the amount of, let's say, crawl budget required by these tools to be able to accurately, let's say, crawl the internet and try and reflect it on their tools in any which way that they want to. So forget the tools, focus on the process, because a very good friend of mine once taught me that failure should be embraced. And if you're in SEO, failure should be embraced at scale. Because the more that you fail, the more you understand how much of this rubber band you can stretch before it snaps. So focus on the process of failing as quickly as possible, as many times as possible, at least on your own test projects. Okay, obviously not on your money assets and so forth. So have very good processes over there. I personally find Notion a fantastic tool for this, as Notion has allowed me to, let's say, outsource at scale repetitive brain dead processes which are difficult to, let's say, translate into AI or build technology around, and are more expensive ultimately also to maintain the code base and continue moving forwards. But it also helps you have a good training base where you can have either processes which you feed into algorithms or processes which you feed into people, right? Then you can choose based on the output of either the AI or of the individual for the specific processes that this makes sense for, whether the output is more valuable on one side than the other. And then you start understanding which tools should be within your set of tools within your agency, SEO operation, or so forth. So yeah, AI agents, I don't believe in them. There are some very good, let's say, progressions which are coming in that space soon. And I think we're like maybe 5 months away, which will blow your mind. I can't really talk much about them myself, as it's a bit of a sensitive topic, but there are some very cool things coming out very soon. That said, when it comes to which tools should you be utilizing within SEO, use the cheapest ones, which offer you the best value, compared to the other ones, which offer you the same value or the same features. And that's my feedback.
Yeah, I can confirm. And you had a very interesting take about failures, about internal testings. And that's a very good point, too. So we already discussed some basic stuff. We already discussed failures. By the way, how many failures on the project do you have in plan for 1 week, for example? Like how many hypotheses do you test during the week on one project? And how do you combine them?
So let's say right now we have some projects in affiliation which we're pushing forwards. And those projects in affiliation have, let's say, they're utilizing a lot of different tactics. And before we move forwards with pushing our next projects, we want to clear the current tests and also account for variables within those tests also, right? So if we're going to, and I really have to be careful about what I say because there's a lot of, let's say, information which actually people in the community provided me with, which I'm testing. So I want to be a little bit, reserved with the exact specifics of the tests that we're running. But let's just say that some of them involve redirects, right? And if you're watching this and you know about what you can do with redirects within the iGaming space, then you know what I'm talking about, right? So let's just say that you want to push forward a couple of tactics in some very highly competitive markets, which is what we're doing all the time, right? So we have some sites which are out competing other sites which have been around for a very, very long period of time with spending practically little to no money, right? In comparison to what those other sites have been spending. We could only do that because we took the risk to identify different patterns that we could follow to get those results and start understanding how often those patterns do and how often they don't work. Now, what happens visually is that when you're testing something new out, you obviously don't want to push it to a money asset. You want to push it to an asset which you're willing to lose, which you're willing to risk and lose. So this should never be a money asset which is generating income. It should never be an asset which belongs to your customer, of course. And you should never do this on an asset which is a very large brand within your portfolio. So these are assets which you build specifically to test. Now, typically what happens is that on the first test, it takes a long time because you're figuring things out. And as you're figuring things out, one test can take you a month to run. But once you run that one test you then have using Loom and AI writing software, SOPs, combining that with Notion and combining it with other things, you suddenly have an SOP created, which suddenly doesn't need to be done by a very skilled individual, but that SOP can be done by anyone who can read the text and has the core skills to be able to implement the strategy. So when it comes to, let's say, hosting, domain setup, those kinds of requirements, it goes to one section of your operation. When it goes to the brain dead following a specific process, it goes to another section of your operation. Now, the trick is to have someone very, very, very good at implementing these processes and recording the results so that then you can move that over to AI or, let's say, less refined human labor. So this is what my strategy is. And it can be on the setup 1 month, sometimes even 2 months, depending on how long it takes to actually come to an analysis of what's actually worked. But then once you get that working, I mean, you could run 10, 15, 20, 30 of these per week, because then once you sort out your resourcing and once you sort out the way that you're the way that you're documenting things and whether you're sending things to technology or whether you're sending them to people, then the scale is determined by the quality of the process. So yeah, you can have some tests which we're running multiple per week. We can have some tests which we're running once every month or once every 2 months, and then they go into our normal flow of SOPs and procedures. Now, I mean, in general, as an SEO-focused company, or even as a marketing-focused company, in general, if you don't eat your own dog food, so if, let's say, I'm an SEO agency, right? But we also operate affiliate sites within the iGaming niche. How can you trust an SEO agency that doesn't operate iGaming affiliate sites within the same niche which they're serving, right? It's because if we didn't have that target base of domains to test on, which we own, then we would be testing on customer assets, which is the worst thing you can do. You never do that. So having those assets and having those tests running in the background to support your affiliate project then also helps you then support the larger scope of your agency, which is servicing multiple customers. So obviously on a customer site, you're never going to utilize a risky tactic. But in the case of, depending on the business goals of that customer, if you discover something new in your tests, you can go, depending on the risk profile of that customer and what their goals are, tell them, hey, look, we discovered this. It works 50% of the time. You require X, Y, and Z to do it. We've tested it. These were the results. These are the domains we've done it on. What do you think? You want to try it out yourself? So then you just build up your portfolio further. So the more processes you have, the more tests you have running, the faster you manage to implement those tests. And when they stop working, it's not a case of, hey, I read this online and there was an SEO guru who might have been big 5 years ago and now I figured it out and I'm testing it. No, I'm testing this every single week. And when it stops working, I'll know about it. And it might stop working in one country and language, and it might still work in another country and language. So
Exactly.
it's very, very nuanced. And if you don't have these testing beds, and if you don't have the capability to scale the testing once you get the SOPs in place, then ultimately you're just basing your work on what's other people say, right? And that's not the correct approach.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for such a wise advice. I can confirm that if something works in one country, in one language, it can work or cannot work in another country also, because Google algorithms, they work and they implement new algorithms step by step. So they start with tier 1 English. And for example, let's say something in Philippines or in Thailand on local languages, it's going to be not the first in the queue. So yeah, that works like that. And I can confirm it from a lot of discussions with many SEO managers on the market. So that is for sure, I believe so. And we already discussed some basic stuff, some processes, how to run this business, how to test hypotheses. And it's very important. I totally agree with you not to test it on the client side. You should have your own projects to test your ideas. And
it sounds visibly, it sounds like something crazy that you would say, but there are people who do that. I know, because I had a customer call me earlier this week, mentioning how he went through 5 agencies, and I looked at his domain and I wanted to cry. Because, effectively, these guys were just using him as a testing bed, using outdated practices which don't work. And if you're watching this right now, don't worry. I'm here to help you, and I'll do it for free just to show you for the bragging rights. And maybe we'll talk about it afterwards, right? But yes, people use it's crazy, but people are not setting things, they're not eating their own dog food, and they're utilizing client domains to test. And that's just not the way to do things. And I think we should start flagging that in the industry.
Exactly. So if you will have still after this podcast any questions to Sean, let us know in the comments below. Sean will answer, and for sure we will provide his contacts so you will message him directly. And running in the final question of this part, as we discussed the history, the hypotheses, and the processes about SEO, it's not a secret for you. I believe that nowadays SEO is changing from something pure, classic in the very beginning, stuffing with keywords, running traffic, and so into some part of even, I would say, journalistic approach, expertise behind the texts, people behind the text like authors, EAT factors from Google algorithms, and stuff like that. The idea here that Google is switching from just keywords and link building and stuff like that into good expert articles. So, and here is the question: how does user experience influence SEO rankings, and what strategies can enhance it?
So this is a really interesting one. Like when I started in gaming years ago, and I came from large software companies in the States, and just having these huge brands, and you don't really have, with those kinds of brands, the opportunity to really get large budgets and test things out, because people, the in the software industry, there was a lot more scrutiny on every single dollar that you spent at that point in time, at least. And effectively, if it was a B2B platform rather than a B2C platform, it was very hard to determine also where the customer success was coming from. So when I had entered iGaming and I started working in a group of operators, the budgets were just massive straight away, large budgets, let's go. And you had to figure things out. So from my perspective, I was just focusing on as many different, let's say, tactics that I could to win in the search results. And instantly I figured out that the vanilla tactics, and I hate to say vanilla tactics because there are loads of people out there who are running SEO who don't understand how SEO works. And you don't really understand how SEO works until you actually push the boundaries and understand, again, and I'll mention this like the James Dooley way. So if you don't know who James Dooley is, go and check him out. Him and his crew are fantastic. But stretching that, elastic band until it snaps. And once I entered iGaming, it was just so hyper competitive from day one. The typical tactics that you would utilize in software just don't work. You have these huge budgets, and there wasn't much oversight at that point in time. So I was just pissing myself, spending money every single month and not really seeing the returns instantly, because it was a new industry for me. I was learning it also. But and this is, by the way, I'm talking about 7-8 years ago, or how old am I now? Is it 8 or 9 years ago now? I don't even remember anymore. But this is a long, long time ago, okay? I found, let's say, the perfect ecosystem, which I've been utilizing since my first year in gaming, since I figured this out, till today. And that was that if I'm managing the media buying of the company and the SEO, so you're managing the entire marketing cycle, right, besides brand and casino management, all of a sudden, if you can't buy a link on that website, maybe you can buy an advertisement. If that advertisement is too expensive to go direct, maybe you can find it cheaper on an ad network. Once you get traffic to your website through ad networks, which is very cheap and doesn't have, let's say, a lot of it is bots also, so you're always with ad networks having to find the bots and cut them out, then you can start retargeting the traffic, which, as an example, starts a registration process but doesn't complete it through programmatic DSPs. And suddenly I created this, let's say, ecosystem from a very long time ago, where within 1 year in iGaming, I won the award of iGaming Idol for ranking at position 1 on online casino on one brand and position 3 on another brand, Book of Ra, and all of the other keywords, right? So, within 1 year, I figured out this ecosystem. And, recently Google had some leaks. And why am I going into this, this long discussion about my history and also why it's relevant? Because people have been talking about traffic over the past 2 to 3 years. So the first time I met someone who was promoting traffic manipulation was at Sigma 2019. So it's not something which just jumped on the scene right now. It's been around for a couple of years, right? But realistically, I've been doing traffic manipulation, but through legitimate sources, not bots, from 2017, right? So you acquire traffic, and then the traffic, which is good, you retarget to make sure that your supply chain is as cheap as possible, and you get those good user signals. And I remember, no one could beat me on those SERPs so long ago, right? Now everyone is using, or not everyone, but a lot of people are utilizing traffic manipulation. Something which people don't understand, which I think is important to mention, is that traffic manipulation, meaning that Google is factoring certain, let's say, data points from user signals at a more high level than they actually told people that they were doing, right? So if you look at the Google leaks, which came out, I think it's been a full year, maybe over a full year now, you see that they have a lot of different, let's say, mechanisms on Chrome, Nav Boost, and so forth to deal with user signals such as traffic, time on page, short clicks, and these kinds of things. So I've been doing this for a decade, but most people found out about it the past 5 years, and most people believed that it worked in 2020 2023 when the Google leaks came out. There's also Koray Tugberg, who's fantastically written about these leaks and provide you all of the information about the complexities of it and how you can utilize that information to optimize your campaigns better. But yes, Google is factoring user signals more than it ever did before. And now it's been proven, right? Some things to be aware of is that it's a post-rank signal, okay? So there's pre-rank and post-rank. So when you're doing the SEO on your website, the vanilla stuff, let's say, all of the vanilla people out there, you're not gonna like this. When you're doing your content and your site management and your blog posts and your interlinking and blah, blah, and then you also have your link building and your PR and your so forth, that's all stuff that contributes to the website pre-rank, meaning that it factors all of that in and it places you on the search result. Post-rank is what you can do once you're placed at a position to increase your rank. And that's what traffic manipulation does, which is where you try and manipulate Google with user signals, such as CTR manipulation, such as traffic to a particular page, such as having micro tasks with people that are effectively following a form, following a pattern, such as typing something in Google, finding the website, clicking on the website, spending a certain amount of time on that website. These are post-rank signals, which once you start ranking, then Google for a period of time will refactor your position in the SERP based on these signals which are coming from these different tactics. And there are loads of them right now. So you might be ranking at position 8 and you can't crack into the top 5 or the top 3. But then you do some kind of traffic manipulation and user signals, and you can crack into the top 2 or 3 positions, but then go back down to where you were after a couple of days or weeks in some cases. I mean, we had run a PR campaign, which generated so much interest. So it's like traffic manipulation, but legitimately, right? So if you run a really good PR campaign where a lot of people are searching for your brand, then all of a sudden you trigger the exact same scenario, but in a more organic way. Now there are some, let's say, complexities over here and a lot of illegitimacy when it comes to traffic manipulation, as there are people utilizing some very, very, very dangerous tactics, which I will never partake in, to do this. So as a, let's say, person who's looking to do this, be careful of who you work with and what tools you utilize, because you never know where that traffic is actually coming from. And I would say that once you do utilize these tactics, you have to be careful of certain algorithms, or let's say algorithmic processes such as NavBoost, which could tank your website if it starts noticing that the signals are trying to manipulate the search engine, which is that everything that Google hates. Google hates when you try to manipulate it. That's why we're here, right? But we do it in ways where it tolerates it, If it doesn't tolerate it, then you're in dangerous territory.
Yes, the best idea is not to manipulate Google, but to keep it natural and keep in mind what Google keeps in mind on his side. And the general idea, I believe, still, it's not about robotics or algorithms. It's about providing the best value to a customer, to our audience, to our readers. So just keep it normal, keep it natural, and it's going to be okay. And if we talk about metrics, you had such a dive deep into even Google leaks. That's quite cool insights for those who have some experience in SEO. But for those who are beginners and just starting their their path in SEO, keep in mind to pay attention on bounce rates, on dwell time, on optimizing page load speeds, responsive design. Start with basic stuff, and Google have public recommendations about it. You can test it, you can check it. Start with the basics and then come back to our video, click the play button, and proceed with all the other recommendations which we just discussed. So the next question is about scaling SEO teams. So we covered the beginning of it, so we can go deeper. And how to scale SEO teams effectively. For example, if I scale an SEO team, I would like not to increase my spends proportionally. But maybe, let's say, scaling a team of 2 times will bring me scaling of business revenue 5 times. Is it possible in general? And if so, how to reach it?
So this is a really interesting question, and I have a lot of feedback here. So I've made all the mistakes over here, so I can tell you about the mistakes, that's for sure. So, back in 2020, it was more about finding the best talent and then finding a way to connect the best talent with the best companies, right? I would say from 2023 onwards, it became more about finding the best talent, but making sure that that talent aligned with the culture of systemization, of SOPs, and let's say turning what they do into a replacement for themselves, which allows them to do more of what they do, right? And less of the monotonous, boring, brain-dead work. So I've failed at this several times. Now I found out how to get it implemented in a way where, yes, as my projects, as my, let's say, overheads increase in terms of work work requirements, my overheads in terms of costs don't go up that much. And the reason for this is, and this is where most SEOs, I would say most SEOs and most SEO agencies, so this is not only advice for an SEO agency, this is also advice for an SEO, is that people create very large teams utilizing very very outdated tactics, which unfortunately run very monotonous processes that creates huge churn and huge costs. So for me, the worst thing is when you have someone amazing as a colleague and you spend years learning from them and they spend years learning from you and they leave. Why did they leave, right? There might be financial opportunities, there might be other things, but most of the time it's culture, okay? So if the culture isn't aligned, then you're not going to be able to retain good talent. And the flywheel effect of losing good talent results in you having to acquire new talent. And if you lose talent but your workload doesn't decrease, you might be susceptible to bad decisions. So this is where most people, I would say, fail, where they don't set up a very strong core value structure and mission, vision, and let's say ideal niche. Also understanding exactly where we're going and why we're going here. People who don't have transparency. So if you don't have transparency in your organization, so if I can't see what you're doing and you can't see what I'm doing, then don't even talk to me about going to remote work, because if everyone just works remotely and doesn't have a way to understand what everyone else is doing, then you can end up in a lot of internal conflict of who's doing what's happening, yada, yada, yada. So systems, culture, extremely, extremely important, and the correct balance of outsourcing to internal resources, okay? So there are many types of outsourcing, and not all types of outsourcing are low value. There's high value outsourcing also. What's important is that when you're scaling, if you want to retain your either profit margin or your sanity because you don't want huge teams reporting to you, you have to have all of the bases of a company's foundation set up. You have to have complete transparency on what the goals are. You have to have the right leaders in place to meet you at the top of that mountain having completed their goals. And you need to have the right systems, the right processes and SOPs to be able to outsource work which doesn't make sense to do internally, and to train people fast when they join the company and also are onboarded. So I find it crazy that every single time that a manager onboards a new colleague, they spend a week explaining the same thing over and over again. So I've seen this happen several times, and I honestly don't understand why HR teams don't solve this. So when you have a new person starting, that new person has a meeting with the director, a meeting with HR, a meeting with the, with the coffee machine. This is where we make coffee. This is where, as an example, these are the processes. These are how you're going. This is the entire. No, why are you doing that 100 times? You're wasting your output. If your output is spent on repetitive things which don't make sense to do over and over again, then you're already kind of lost, because you're scaling. But as an operation gets bigger, it gets more complicated. There are more moving parts. So if you're going to be repeating the same things over and over again, then your operation eventually is going to implode. And the overhead gets so big that the value that you deliver becomes way smaller, because you're not able to be lean and nimble and move fast anymore. So definitely, even from the colleague onboarding, spend the time. And it's really tough. I know it's tough, okay? Because everyone's busy. Everyone has stuff to do. Everyone has projects that they're running. Everyone has, results that they need to generate. But if you tell me that, oh my God, I have to onboard this person and it's going to take up so much of my time, and this is the smallest thing that I can tell you. I have a week onboarding now. Why? Do it with the first one of that role. Record everything into modules. Record everything into SOPs. Make sure that new people who join have everything that they need to be successful without you, so that even when you get busy, you're not responsible for them not progressing. And if you build up that the correct way, everything else tends to fall into place. So another very, let's say, important part of the puzzle is understanding which system you want to utilize. I mean, I fell into the trap of building my own system a while back, which created huge overheads, huge costs, a lot more discussions, user stories, development time, QA testing, bug fixing. So from when you contemplate something to when it actually is released on the market, I mean, you could have sometimes 6, 8, 10, weeks, before people are actively using it. So as a, let's say, operational software, where you can do quite a lot of things and have a blank canvas, I like Notion quite a lot. So if you really know how to use Notion, like something which we spent a year building, and a significant, let's say, cost base to achieve, with Notion we managed to do in 3 months with effectively practically no cost. Yeah, and we managed to build a system where the amount of, let's say, feedback cycles that needed to go through to, let's say, development was eliminated. And effectively, if you wanted something to solve a problem for you today, you could have it in 2 days' time.
Exactly.
So speed, be fast, be nimble, reduce your overhead from anything such as onboarding. Spend the time to have the correct fundamentals. That's the point. If you have the fundamentals right, then you're adding another cog to the main cog. So as this one turns, then the other two turn more, and you manage to increase the mechanism of your operation. But if your fundamentals are broken, you're going to have a cog spinning over here, a cog spinning over here, a cog spinning over there, and you might not even be spinning in the right direction, right?
Exactly. I totally agree with this point. I met such situations pretty many times, I would say, when people concentrated on processes, on just creating processes, not just the effectiveness of these processes, but creating them. Yeah, that's gonna be a mess in your business. So keep in mind, you should not only create a process, but you should create an effective process and follow it. Don't overwhelm don't overhead with it. And another interesting thing you mentioned is about outsource. So how to understand when to use outsource and when not to use it. How do you make a choice? Because the question is because it's not a secret. If you build a good process inside, most probably it's going to be cheaper for you to run this process or this part of the business instead of buying it somewhere outsourced. So how do you choose what to run on outsource basis and what to run in-house?
Okay, so let's just talk about SEO, right? So outreach. you're doing that internally, you're doing something wrong. That's my personal opinion. So there are way more scalable approaches to acquiring personnel, to acquiring talent. If you have the correct processes and the correct system, it can be scaled infinitely. If you're doing it all internally, it's just not going to make sense. Even the profile, if let's say you're an agency operator, SEO team in general operating in Malta, not many people want to do that, right? It's okay, maybe they'll be interested in setting up the emails and setting up the initial tactics, but then when it becomes a grind and it's like, okay, so we need to reach out to so many, to get so many replies, to follow up and, have different tactics, it becomes monotonous, brain dead, and a lot of people within, let's say, the country of Malta, your let's say customer, or let's say your attrition will be high, so you have a high churn rate within your company. While some, let's say, other nationalities might actually prefer to do that kind of work within developing countries. They actually enjoy the monotony of following a process over and over again and doing it right and optimizing it, then becoming huge experts at that also. So how do you figure out what you're keeping internal and what you're keeping and what then you're externalizing, and what skill levels? I mean, first of all, the complexity of the task is the first one. So how much training needs to be completed for someone to execute this task? If the answer is, a lot, then it's probably not the right thing to externalize. If the answer is 1 hour, then it's probably the right thing to externalize. So that's the first step that I would take. But externalization doesn't only mean, hiring people to do certain tasks. Externalization also means, as an example, that you want to try something new in your tactics, but you don't actually have the knowledge or the resources to implement it yourself. So instead, what you do is you outsource it to someone who's an expert at it. And if you see that once that person who's an expert at it, integrating with your own systems and processes, you're using it enough for it to make sense for you to internalize it, then you bring the expertise internally, and then you figure out if it can be outsourced also. So there are so many ways that you can do this. But in general, if you're going to have some processes which can be learned in, okay, let me not say hours, but days and not months, then that's probably the first thing that you should outsource, because it's the lowest value, highest cost saving, because mostly that's the kind of work also which requires the most amount of people. And no one enjoys working at a company where people are unhappy. So if you have a high churn rate, you're just going to create a toxic environment in your entire operation. So these kinds of, let's say, processes, you have to figure out solutions for.
So yeah, that's clear about the processes, about what to do there. Let's talk about content strategies and SEO strategies. When you scale, you need to have some solutions like content networks or templates for your articles or templates for your websites. What is your idea, and how do you manage similar tasks when scaling in part of content and website creation?
Great question. And it feeds back into everything that I do. So I have the core, which is systemization, right? So when you do something once, get the fundamentals right so that you can do it 100 times without doing it yourself. So as an example, you're going to start, as we were speaking about, affiliate sites. So before you start an affiliate site, you do what we call affiliate business planning. So we don't partake in projects which are not going to generate money. So the way that we handle it is by focusing on what data points are going to contribute towards and data collection and analysis and all of that information we spoke about in the ROI analysis at the beginning, which can contribute to us taking a decision on whether this is going to be profitable, how long it's going to be profitable, and so forth. We do that once, and then before we just go into the cycle of doing it again and again and again, we go back to the fundamentals, which are utilizing Loom, utilizing AI scripting software, systemizing, have that SOP translated into Notion, having the video over there. So these are areas where you can train people on how to do this so that you don't have to do it. Now, once you do that, then it goes into Notion, you outsource it or you give it over to someone else, and you have a cycle of, I've finished this, it's going over here. back to the internal team or to the person who's responsible for the success of this project. It's working well, yes, no, okay, it's going back to the resource. Resource is going to have to check that it's working, check the feedback, update it. It goes then back to the person who's responsible for it, and they keep on running this feedback loop until it's refined, meaning that you can send it to a new person or a person with an adequate skill set level, and they can achieve the kind of quality which you're looking for. Now, once that's done with affiliate business planning, then you can do it also with keyword research. You can do it with competitor research, backlink overviews, backlink intersect analysis, anchor text distribution analysis, quality versus quantity, whether it's for traffic, CCTLDs, yada yada, all of these other areas. What you're going to have to do in terms of page types, when these page types are going to be implemented. What team are you using? How do you set up that team? How do you implement content on that team? So it's endless. Once you do the project once, then you can systemize it and make sure that you have the fundamentals correct. And then you can never do that ever again. But look at what's working and what's not on all of your different assets. And then rather than going in and optimizing each and every one of those assets, optimize the process of, as an example, content update, and distribute that process to all of the right skill level resources that then go in and provide you what you're looking for. So again, the way that I work and what I operate is nothing cannot be systemized. And if you tell me it cannot be systemized, look at McDonald's.
Exactly. Good example. Make McDonald's out of your SEO projects. Yeah. 3 minutes and you will get the first top position as a query. So that's interesting about having all those instructions for all the processes, and that really works. But there is a tricky part. For example, if you combined those instructions 10 years ago, most probably they are not actual now. And what I want to talk about is about current SEO challenges. We had so many Google algorithm updates during last several years. And I know a lot of affiliates in our industry and a lot of website owners, they suffer from those updates. And I see every time, like it happens once per quarter right now, or something like that. About 70% of the market is going down. So the question here is how to compete those challenges within your processes, how to evaluate or make evolution from one step to another in such a fast changing world, and how to find the balance between those SEO algorithms and requirements from Google and the customer value, what we discussed in the very beginning. Where is the golden middle? Where is the golden rule? How to manage all this stuff while all those challenges?
It's a very good question, and I might have an unpopular opinion. But what is Google? It's a top list, right? So part of the reasons why things are changing is because there are certain features such as AI overviews, which are coming into play, and a lot of different products that Google are baking into the algorithm and to what's presented to the user, which takes clicks away from the websites, but creates clicks on Google's product, which is their website ultimately. So that obviously creates less value for the people who are operating in that, let's say, top 10 positions, as you have less clicks because either there are more PPC ads or black PPC ads, whatever you want to call them nowadays, and more features which are reducing the amount of clicks to actual websites. So that's one of the reasons, right? One of the threats which is on the horizon. There's obviously all of the Google updates which are coming out. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned the statistic, I think like 70% of them are going down. Forget the 70% that are going down. I never look at the guys who are losing. I always look at the guys who are winning. And the 30% who have gone up right now, at the end of the day, there still are the same positions on Google. Maybe certain different features are in there right now, but there are different players ranking right now, some smart people. One of the, let's say, commonalities that I've seen behind the companies that are going down is that they might have been large 10 years ago, maybe even 5-8 years ago. They might have had founders that sold the businesses might have gone public, and then those businesses lost let's say, the founder mentality and the startup mentality, which is, at the end of the day, think about how crazy this is. A business going public that relies on a third-party product in order to succeed or fail, which is Google, right? So these businesses are completely reliant on Google to succeed. My business is completely reliant on Google to succeed. My affiliate sites are completely reliant on Google to succeed. And when you have that founder mentality where you're going to figure out any way to make it go, it's very different to the, in some cases, employee mindset, where you just want to go in and find that process and complete and continue executing it. And what a lot of these guys did was, rather than building up more, maybe having the right incentives internally to retain the right people or attract the right people, but with funding where they get a percentage of the company or whatnot, I don't think that happened. And rather than that, what ended up happening was that it was a very old school way of operating. We're working in a very fast environment. So what was working 2 years ago is now old school. It's not like we're talking about 20 years ago, right? And there, let's say, a lot of the progress was pushed by acquisition and buyouts. So you have people who sell them their websites. There are buyout terms. They stay there for the buyout terms instead of those, in the case of those founders. And then they leave. And you see almost a pattern of these assets where the buyouts complete and then the assets tank afterwards. And I'm not making any accusations, but obviously there have been PBNs for a very long time which have been pushing up the search results. Did the companies do the due diligence to make sure they weren't only acquiring the asset, but they were also acquiring the assets which surround the asset? I'm not sure, but it's been a cycle. And I've seen some of these, let's say, larger companies, which is what they are. They're large institutional companies at this stage. They're just not able to be nimble enough to compete with the, not small companies, but highly process-oriented companies. So a couple of buddies of mine are running some of the, let's say, largest affiliates right now in the iGaming space. And they think just like me: systemize everything, transparency. I don't want to wait 2 weeks for you to generate a report for me on a PowerPoint presentation. Set up Luca Studio, set up the integrations. If you can't figure that out, then what are you doing here, right? So all of these core fundamentals, this mindset also of, the new tactics which are littering the SERP. So, a lot of these older institutional companies also had some very successful, let's say, media deals with some large suppliers, such as, actually, let me not mention their names because I'm not here to flag any sites for penalization. But we've seen it. So you've seen some very, very large sites and, let's say, groups of companies who did Parasite SEO, or as Google calls it, site reputation abuse. Now, there are sites which got hit on May 5th of 2023 when Google came in and manually penalized all of these domains, okay? And they disappeared. But there were few site owners and few companies that when they disappeared, they came up and they recovered, or they set up something new almost instantly. And they managed to funnel the failure of one thing into the success of another one. And that's the kind of mindset. I have this all in my book, which I'm going to be releasing soon. So it's mentioning how if you're not showing up onto the market with something unique nowadays, then you're fighting a battle the old school way. So if you don't have a powerful domain, you don't have expired domains, you're not able to recover a previously penalized website and now make it successful, so you don't understand the process to do that. And there is a process to do that, right? You can become an expert on recovering penalized domains and then turning them into value. So if you're not at the forefront of these kinds of practices, then obviously, yes, you're going to go down in the SERPs. And the people who are typically at the forefront of these practices, from what I've seen, are the companies which are founder-led, where there still is that, do or die mentality, where you go in there and you try to make it as successful as you can every single day of the week. There are some huge, massively successful and still very institutional and massively successful affiliate companies who build amazing portfolios and amazing products, and they can do no wrong. That 30% that's still succeeding, they can do no wrong. They're fantastic, and they'll continue being fantastic. But the ones that I'm seeing who are not doing so well, they're the ones who just haven't adapted. And even when they try, they just they don't do it correctly. They don't go into the right hiring process. People are thrown onto projects which they have no idea about. So there aren't good handovers. There aren't good. There's no good strategy behind it. It's just like, okay, let's throw bodies at it. And, if that's your approach, then that's the result.
I totally agree with it. Thank you for sharing. What a massive podcast we had today. We discussed a lot of things: business optimization, scalability, automation, analytics, and user experience for sure. All of that can be directly applied into businesses in 2025. Sean, maybe you have one final key takeaway for our audience.
Key takeaway. Okay, I have to think about this one, right? Fail often, fail fast, and fail in stupendous fashion. And don't be scared to test. Accept the failures, learn from them, and make sure that you don't repeat them, and learn from them.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing such valuable expertise. Be sure to connect with Sean on LinkedIn. Check out our description for his new upcoming book with all the secrets he learned during his life. Follow him on LinkedIn. There will be much more content about it. All the links down below in the description, correct? If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Peaky Ads YouTube channel. Leave us a review and share this with your network. Your support helps us bring even more industry leaders and actionable strategies your way. Stay ahead, keep optimizing, and we'll see you in the next episode. Until next time. Yeah, you have one final takeaway. One more.
Yeah. We need to get everyone. We need to get Vasilii to come to Malta. So I want you to drop as many comments as you possibly can. Vasilii, go to Malta. Let's make this happen.
Okay. Until next time, happy scaling, both in business and SEO. Ciao, ciao.
See you. Thank you.